I am Lillian, 32 years old, and for 2 years my younger brother Marcus treated me like I was invisible, a failure, someone not worth his time. At family dinners, he would make jokes about my unemployment while flashing his expensive watch and talking about his latest promotion. He called me a burden, a disappointment, someone who had wasted her potential. What he didn't know was that I was building something in silence, something that would change everything. Before I continue this story, drop a comment about where you're watching from and hit that subscribe button if you've ever been underestimated by someone who should have supported you. 3 years ago, my life looked completely different. I was a senior project manager at TechWave Solutions, one of the city's most respected software companies. I had a corner office, a 6-figure salary, and a team of 12 talented developers who reported to me. I had worked my way up from an entry-level position over 8 years, earning every promotion through late nights, successful product launches, and consistent results. My career was everything I had worked for since graduating with my computer science degree. Then everything collapsed in a single morning. Our company was acquired by a larger corporation, and in the restructuring that followed, my entire department was eliminated. Just like that, I went from managing major projects to standing in the HR office with a severance package and a box of personal belongings. The shock was profound. I had given that company nearly a decade of my life, missed family events for critical deadlines, sacrificed relationships for career advancement, and in the end, none of it mattered. My brother Marcus was 28 at the time, working as a sales manager at a mid-sized marketing firm. He had always been competitive with me, always measuring his success against mine. When I got promoted to senior manager, he made sure to mention his sales numbers at every family gathering. When I bought my condo, he immediately started shopping for a bigger one. Our relationship had always been cordial but distant, more about competition than genuine connection. When I first told my family about losing my job, Marcus's response was surprisingly sympathetic. "That's rough, sis," he said during our family dinner that Sunday. "But you'll land on your feet. You always do." For about 2 weeks, he maintained that supportive attitude. He even sent me a few job listings he thought might interest me. But as weeks turned into months and I remained unemployed, his tone began to shift. The job market had hit a downturn just as I was looking. My specialized skills were in project management for enterprise software development, a niche that had suddenly become oversaturated with laid-off professionals just like me. I sent out hundreds of applications, went through countless interviews, made it to final rounds only to be told they went with an internal candidate or someone with more recent experience. Each rejection chipped away at my confidence. By month 3, Marcus's comments at family dinners had taken on a different edge. Still looking, he would ask with what seemed like genuine concern, but his eyes told a different story. "You know, maybe you're being too picky. Have you considered retail management? My company is actually looking for someone to handle our merchandise." I forced a smile and assured him I was pursuing opportunities more aligned with my experience. By month 6, the mask had completely dropped. Marcus arrived at my parents' house for Sunday dinner in a new luxury car, a sleek silver BMW that he made sure everyone noticed. "Bonus season," he announced proudly as we all admired it from the front window. "Top performer in the region gets a choice between cash or the car." I figured why not treat myself. He turned to me with a smile that didn't reach his eyes. "When was the last time you bought something nice for yourself, Lily?" "Oh wait, I guess unemployment benefits don't stretch that far." My mother frowned. "Marcus, that's unnecessary." But he waved her off. "I'm just saying, it's been half a year. At some point, you have to accept that maybe you're not as valuable to the market as you thought you were. Pride is expensive when you can't pay your bills." I felt my face flush with humiliation, but I kept my voice steady. "I'm being strategic about my next move. I'm not going to jump into something that's not the right fit just to have a paycheck." Marcus laughed. "That's what unsuccessful people say when they're too proud to accept that they've failed. Meanwhile, the rest of us are out here actually contributing to society, paying taxes, building careers." Those dinners became increasingly painful. Marcus would arrive with stories of his latest business trip, his team's accomplishments, the recognition he was receiving from upper management. Then he would inevitably turn the conversation toward me with questions designed to highlight my failures. How many interviews did you have this week, Lily? Oh, none? Interesting. I had 3 meetings just today with potential clients worth millions. Or, Dad was just telling me about his retirement plans. Must be nice to have a successful career to retire from. Some of us are still trying to figure out how to start one again. My parents tried to intervene, but their attempts were half-hearted. I suspected part of them agreed with Marcus, even if they would never say it directly. My father had always valued tangible success, measurable achievements, clear evidence of productivity. My mother worried constantly about my finances, my future, my ability to survive independently. Their concern, while well-intentioned, made me feel like I was drowning. What none of them knew, what I told no one during those painful family dinners, was that I wasn't just job hunting. I was building something. During my years at TechWave, I had identified a significant gap in the market. Small and medium-sized businesses desperately needed project management software, but existing solutions were either too expensive or too complex for companies without dedicated IT departments. They needed something intuitive, affordable, and scalable. In the first weeks after my layoff, while still in shock, I had started sketching out ideas. What if I built the solution I had always wished existed? I had the technical knowledge, the industry experience, and thanks to my severance package, enough runway to explore the possibility. But I told no one because the idea felt fragile, uncertain, something that could be crushed by skepticism or mockery. I spent my days learning everything I could about software development, even though my background was in management rather than coding. I took online courses, watched countless tutorials, and slowly began building a prototype. My condo became my office, my dining table covered with notes and diagrams, my laptop running development environments 16 hours a day. I lived on savings and unemployment benefits, cutting every unnecessary expense to extend my runway as long as possible. By month 9, I had a functioning prototype. It was rough, basic, but it worked. I started reaching out to my network, former colleagues who had moved on to smaller companies, asking if they would be willing to test my software. The feedback was encouraging. People saw the potential immediately. They wanted more features, better integration, but the core concept resonated with everyone who tried it. During this time, Marcus's mockery reached its peak. At Thanksgiving dinner, he arrived with his girlfriend Claire, a pharmaceutical sales rep who seemed pleasant enough until Marcus encouraged her to join in his sport. Claire's company is hiring administrative assistants, he announced loudly as we sat down to eat. I was telling her about your situation, Lily. She said she could put in a word for you. It's entry level, but beggars can't be choosers, right? I gripped my fork tightly. I appreciate the thought, but I'm pursuing other opportunities. Marcus leaned back in his chair, arms crossed. Other opportunities. You've been saying that for months. At what point do you admit that you're just unemployable? Maybe you weren't actually as good at your job as you thought. Maybe that's why they let you go in the first place. The table fell silent. Even Marcus seemed to realize he had crossed a line. My mother's face was pale, my father's jaw tight. But before anyone could respond, I stood up calmly. Excuse me, I said quietly. I've lost my appetite. I left my parents' house that night with tears streaming down my face, but also with a burning determination. Marcus's cruelty had clarified something for me. I would succeed not to prove him wrong, but to prove to myself that my worth wasn't defined by his opinion or anyone else's. By December, I had incorporated my business. Project Flow Solutions was officially born. I had spent my savings, maxed out a business credit card, and committed to making this work no matter what it took. I hired a developer from Ukraine through a freelancing platform, someone brilliant and affordable who believed in the vision. Together, we refined the prototype into a beta version ready for real testing. I reached out to 20 small businesses, offering free 6-month trials in exchange for feedback and testimonials. 15 said yes. Within weeks, the responses started coming in. People loved it. It solved real problems they faced daily. The interface was intuitive, the pricing model made sense, and unlike enterprise solutions, it didn't require a computer science degree to implement. Christmas dinner at my parents' house was particularly brutal. Marcus had been promoted to regional sales director, a position he mentioned approximately 15 times during the evening. "You know what the key to success is?" he said, looking directly at me while addressing the table. "Persistence, adaptability, and knowing when to cut your losses. Some people spend years chasing dreams that will never materialize. Successful people recognize reality and adjust accordingly." I smiled blandly and helped my mother clear the dishes. In the kitchen, she touched my arm gently. "How are you really doing, honey? Your father and I are worried. If you need help with rent or groceries, you know we would support you." I hugged her. "I'm okay, Mom. Really. I'm working on something, I promise. Just give me a little more time." What I didn't tell her was that Project Flow had just signed its first paying customer. A small accounting firm had completed their trial and immediately upgraded to our premium tier. The revenue was modest, barely enough to cover my developer's monthly retainer, but it was validation. Someone valued what I had built enough to pay for it. By February, we had 12 paying customers. By March, 28. The revenue was growing exponentially as word spread through small business networks. I was barely sleeping, handling customer support during the day, product development at night, and somehow managing to show up at family dinners where Marcus continued his weekly performance. Still unemployed, he asked in April, not even bothering with pretense anymore. "You know, at this point, you're basically volunteering to be a failure. There are plenty of jobs out there if you're willing to lower your standards." I looked at him calmly. "Actually, I've been working. I started my own business." The table went silent. Marcus laughed first. "A business? What kind of business?" I kept my voice neutral. "Software as a service. Project management tools for small businesses." His laugh grew louder. "Oh, that's rich. You, who couldn't even keep your last job, think you can run a business? Do you have any idea how many startups fail in the first year? This is exactly what I'm talking about, living in fantasyland instead of facing reality." My father frowned. "Lillian, starting a business requires capital, resources, expertise. How are you funding this?" I met his eyes. "I used my severance, some savings, and I'm bootstrapping the growth through revenue. We have 32 paying customers now." Marcus nearly choked on his wine. 32 customers? That's what you call a business? I closed a single deal last month worth more than whatever you're making from 32 small-time clients. This is sad, Lily. Really sad. I didn't respond. There was no point. He couldn't see what I was building, and explaining it would only invite more mockery. I finished my dinner in silence and left early, returning to my condo where my developer and I were preparing to launch a major new feature. By June, Project Flow had 147 paying customers. I hired a second developer and a part-time customer support specialist. The revenue was enough that I could finally start paying myself a modest salary again. More importantly, we were solving real problems for real businesses. The testimonials were pouring in. I had created something valuable, something that mattered. Marcus remained oblivious to my growing success. He had achieved his own milestone, being named in his company's top 10 performers nationally, an honor that dominated 3 consecutive family dinners. He brought a framed certificate to show everyone, making sure it passed around the table like a trophy. When it reached me, he said, "You should frame something too, Lily. Maybe a participation trophy for longest job search in family history." I smiled tightly and passed the certificate to my mother. Inside, I was calculating numbers. Project Flow was on track to hit $500,000 in annual recurring revenue by year's end. We had just closed a partnership with a major small business association that would give us access to thousands of potential customers. I had hired a marketing manager and was in talks with a venture capital firm about a potential investment round, not because I needed the money, but because the investor wanted in. The turning point came in August. Marcus's company, Sterling Marketing Group, had been growing rapidly, expanding into new markets and acquiring smaller firms. As they grew, their internal operations became increasingly chaotic. They needed better project management systems to coordinate across offices and teams. Their existing solution was an expensive enterprise platform that no one actually understood how to use properly. I learned this not from Marcus, but from a LinkedIn message I received one Tuesday afternoon. Sarah Chin, Sterling Marketing Group's chief operating officer, had seen Project Flow mentioned in a small business magazine article and wanted to schedule a demo. She was impressed by our customer testimonials and curious whether our platform could scale to their needs. My heart raced as I read her message. Sterling Marketing Group was Marcus's company. But Sarah didn't know Marcus was my brother, and he certainly didn't know his company was considering my software. I responded professionally, scheduling a demo for the following week, and said nothing to my family. The demo went exceptionally well. Sarah brought her entire operations team, and they loved what they saw. The interface was intuitive, the features comprehensive, and unlike their current system, people could actually figure out how to use it without a training manual. The pricing is almost too good, Sarah admitted. We've been paying 10 times this amount for something our people actively avoid using. When could we start implementation? We negotiated terms over the next 2 weeks. Sterling Marketing Group wanted a custom deployment for their 200-plus employees across 5 offices. It was by far the largest contract Project Flow had secured, worth more annually than all our other customers combined. They needed extensive onboarding, training, and customization, but they were willing to pay premium prices for white glove service. The contract was finalized in early September. Sterling Marketing Group would publicly announce their technology partnership with Project Flow at their quarterly all-hands meeting, then roll out the implementation over the following 3 months. Sarah mentioned that their executive team was excited about modernizing their operations and had specifically requested that I present at the all-hands meeting to explain the platform to all employees simultaneously. I agreed, fully aware of what this would mean. Marcus would be in that room. He would see me standing on stage, presenting to his company, including his bosses and colleagues. He would learn, in the most public way possible, that his jobless failure of a sister had built something valuable enough that his own company was betting their operational efficiency on it. Family dinner the Sunday before the all-hands meeting was difficult for different reasons. I wanted to tell them about my success, about the contract, about everything I had built in silence while enduring Marcus's constant mockery. But I also wanted Marcus to learn the truth in the most impactful way possible, standing in front of his entire company with no warning, no preparation, no opportunity to diminish or reframe the situation. Marcus was in rare form that evening, celebrating another successful quarter. "They're talking about making me vice president next year," he announced proudly. "Youngest VP in company history. Can you imagine?" Meanwhile, some people are still trying to figure out how to get hired anywhere. His eyes flickered to me, the unspoken target clear. I smiled serenely. "Things have a way of working out," I said simply. He snorted. "Sure, for people who actually work hard. For people who chase fantasies, not so much. How's that little software thing going? Still pretending you're an entrepreneur?" I took a sip of water. "Actually, it's going quite well. We just signed our largest contract yet. A major company with offices across multiple cities." Marcus looked momentarily surprised, then dismissive. "Let me guess, some tiny startup counting 5 employees as multiple cities? That's cute, Lily. Really. But actual business happens at a different scale than whatever you're playing at." I didn't respond. There was no need. In 3 days, he would understand exactly what scale I was operating at. The Sterling Marketing Group all-hands meeting was held in their main conference center, a modern space with stadium seating for 250 people. I arrived an hour early to set up my presentation and test the equipment. Sarah greeted me warmly, introducing me to several executives who expressed enthusiasm about the partnership. Everyone seemed genuinely excited about the change. As the room filled with employees, I stood backstage, heart pounding. I had presented to crowds before, had pitched to investors and led training sessions. But this was different. This was personal. I spotted Marcus entering with a group of colleagues, laughing about something, completely unaware of what was about to happen. Sarah took the stage to begin the meeting, running through quarterly results and company updates. Then she shifted to operational improvements. As many of you know, she said, we've been struggling with project coordination across our growing organization. Our current system isn't meeting our needs, and we've heard your frustration loud and clear. So, we've made a significant investment in a new platform that will transform how we work together. She gestured toward the screen as my company logo appeared. Project Flow Solutions is a rising star in the project management space, specifically designed for growing companies like ours. And we're privileged to have the founder here today to walk us through what this partnership will mean for all of you. Please welcome Lillian Thornton. I walked onto the stage to polite applause, my eyes immediately finding Marcus in T. He crowed. His face had gone completely white. He stared at me as if seeing a ghost, his mouth slightly open in shock. Around him, colleagues who had heard him mention his unemployed sister were putting the pieces together, their expressions shifting from confusion to understanding to something like second-hand embarrassment. I smiled professionally at the audience and began my presentation. Thank you, Sarah. I'm thrilled to be here today to introduce Project Flow and share how we're going to make your work lives significantly easier. For the next 45 minutes, I walked through the platform, demonstrating features, explaining implementation timelines, and answering questions. I was polished, confident, and thoroughly prepared. This was my expertise, and it showed. Marcus sat frozen through the entire presentation. I watched his face cycle through emotions. Shock, disbelief, embarrassment, and something that might have been anger or perhaps humiliation. His colleagues kept glancing at him, clearly making connections between the sister he had mocked and the successful entrepreneur standing before them. During the Q&A session, someone asked how I had developed such deep understanding of the pain points small and mid-sized companies faced. I spent nearly a decade in project management at enterprise level, I explained. When I left that position, I saw an opportunity to take that expertise and create something accessible to companies that couldn't afford enterprise solutions or the complexity they required. Project Flow exists because I experienced firsthand how difficult it is to coordinate complex projects without the right tools. After the presentation, employees crowded around with questions and enthusiasm. Sarah was beaming, clearly pleased with the response. Several executives made a point of thanking me personally and expressing their confidence in the partnership. Through it all, Marcus remained in his seat, staring at his phone, unable or unwilling to approach me. Finally, as the crowd thinned, he made his way over. His colleagues had dispersed, giving us privacy. He stood before me, his usual confidence completely absent. Why didn't you tell us? His voice was barely above a whisper. I met his eyes calmly. Tell you what exactly? That you built this. That you were successful. That you weren't actually failing. I let the question hang in the air for a moment. Would it have mattered? Would you have treated me differently if you knew I was building something, or would you have just found new ways to mock my ambitions? He looked away, unable to hold my gaze. I didn't know you were actually doing something real. That's exactly the problem, Marcus. You assumed I was failing because I wasn't succeeding in the exact way you understood success. You never once asked what I was working on or how I was spending my time. You just decided I was a failure and treated me accordingly. I'm sorry, he said, the words sounding foreign in his mouth. I was a complete ass. I should have supported you instead of tearing you down. I nodded slowly. Yes, you should have. But you didn't, and I can't change that. What I can tell you is that your constant mockery didn't break me. If anything, it clarified my determination to succeed on my own terms, not yours. Sarah appeared beside us, interrupting the moment. Lillian, the executive team would like to take you to dinner tonight to discuss the implementation schedule in more detail. Would that work for you? I smiled at her. Absolutely. I'd be delighted. As I gathered my materials, Marcus remained frozen, watching me with an expression I couldn't quite read. Part regret, part resentment, perhaps even a grudging respect he wasn't ready to admit. I felt no triumph in his discomfort, only a quiet satisfaction that I had proven myself in the way that mattered most, through genuine achievement rather than empty words. The next family dinner was illuminating. My parents greeted me with unusual enthusiasm, my mother practically pulling me inside. "Why didn't you tell us?" she asked, her voice a mixture of pride and reproach. "Marcus told us everything about your company and the contract with his firm." "This is wonderful news, sweetheart." I set down my purse carefully. "I didn't tell you because I needed to focus on building something real rather than managing everyone's expectations or defending myself against criticism. I needed space to succeed or fail on my own terms." My father looked uncomfortable. "We would have supported you if we'd known what you were doing." I looked at him directly. "Would you have? Or would you have joined Marcus in suggesting I was chasing an impossible dream? That I should just take any job instead of wasting time on something risky?" The silence that followed was answer enough. Marcus arrived late, slipping into his seat without his usual fanfare. No expensive watch to show off, no stories about his latest achievements, just a quiet awkwardness that filled the room. Halfway through dinner, he finally spoke. "I talked to Sarah this week. She said our company is probably going to become one of your biggest advocates, that we're already seeing efficiency improvements even in the pilot phase." I nodded. "That's good to hear. We've worked hard to make sure the implementation goes smoothly." He pushed food around his plate. "I told her you were my sister. She said she had no idea. She also mentioned she had been following your company's growth for months, reading articles about you, following your social media. Apparently, you're becoming pretty well known in the startup world." Project Flow has gotten some nice attention, I acknowledged. "We've been fortunate." Marcus set down his fork. "I need to say this in front of everyone. I was wrong about you. I was cruel and dismissive, and I made assumptions about your worth based on circumstances I didn't understand. I'm sorry." The apology hung in the air. It was more than I had expected, certainly more than I had received before. But words were just words. Actions had revealed who Marcus truly was, and one apology couldn't erase 2 years of systematic cruelty. "I appreciate you saying that," I replied carefully. "But apologies are easy when someone succeeds in a way you can't ignore or diminish. The question is whether you've actually learned something or whether you're just embarrassed that I succeeded despite your mockery." He flinched but didn't argue. My mother tried to smooth over the tension. "The important thing is we're all proud of you now, Lillian. You've built something remarkable." "Now," I repeated softly. "You're proud now that success is visible and undeniable." But I was building this during all those family dinners where I was mocked and dismissed. I was working 16-hour days while being called unemployable. Nothing about me or my work ethic changed. Only your ability to recognize it changed. My father shifted uncomfortably. "That's not entirely fair, Lillian. We didn't know what you were doing. You kept it secret." "I kept it private," I corrected, because I needed to protect my energy and focus. Every time I was here, I was made to feel like a failure, a burden, someone who didn't measure up. I couldn't afford to let that poison infect the one thing I was building toward. So yes, I kept it private until I could reveal it on my own terms. The rest of dinner passed in subdued conversation. As I prepared to leave, Marcus walked me to my car. "I really am sorry," he said again. "Not just because you succeeded, but because I should have been better regardless. You're my sister. I should have supported you even if you had actually been struggling to find a job." I looked at him, searching for sincerity in his expression. "You're right, you should have. The question is whether you'll actually be different going forward or whether this is just temporary discomfort because you got caught being cruel." "I want to do better," he said. "I don't know if you'll believe that, but I do." I nodded slowly. "Then do better. Not just with me, but with everyone." Success isn't a zero-sum game where someone else's struggles make you more valuable. Real success is building people up, not tearing them down. As I drove home that night, I felt a complex mixture of emotions. There was satisfaction in having proven myself, in watching the people who had dismissed me recognize their error. But there was also sadness in knowing that their support had been conditional, dependent on visible success rather than inherent worth. The experience had taught me valuable lessons about self-reliance, about the importance of surrounding yourself with people who support your journey rather than demand you justify your path. It had shown me that sometimes the greatest strength is in continuing forward despite mockery, in protecting your dreams from people who can't envision them. 3 months later, Project Flow closed a series of funding round at a $15 million valuation. We had grown to over 500 paying customers, hired a team of 20 employees, and were expanding into international markets. The press coverage was substantial, including a feature in a major business magazine that detailed my journey from laid-off project manager to successful startup founder. Marcus texted me a link to the article with a simple message, "Proud of you, sis." I stared at those words for a long time before responding. It was what I had wanted to hear during those difficult months, the simple acknowledgement that I mattered, that my efforts were worth something. But receiving it now, after success was undeniable, felt hollow. The people who mattered most, the ones who had truly supported me, were the ones who had believed in me when there was no proof, no validation, no public recognition. They were the customers who took a chance on an unknown platform, the developer who joined me when I could barely afford his rate, the small business owners who provided testimonials before I had a track record, and yes, my parents in their imperfect way, even when they worried. Marcus had taught me an important lesson, though not the one he intended. He had shown me that external validation, especially from people who had previously dismissed you, often says more about their limitations than your worth. Their recognition arrives only when success becomes too obvious to ignore, when denying it would expose their previous judgment as flawed. But by then, their opinion matters less because you've discovered your worth independent of their recognition. The true victory wasn't becoming Marcus's boss or proving him wrong. It was building something meaningful while maintaining my integrity, supporting myself through difficult transitions, and emerging stronger than I had been before. It was learning to value my own assessment of my progress rather than waiting for others to validate my path. At our next family dinner, Marcus asked if I was hiring. "My company is great," he explained, "but I keep thinking about what you've built and wondering if there might be opportunities to work together. You know, join your team in some capacity." I smiled, appreciating the irony. "Project Flow is hiring," I acknowledged. "We're always looking for talented people. If you're serious, you can apply through our website like everyone else. We have a rigorous interview process, but we evaluate everyone fairly based on their qualifications and fit with our culture." His face showed surprise, perhaps having expected a different response. An immediate yes, a special exception, something that acknowledged our relationship. "You'd make me apply like anyone else?" "Of course," I replied simply. "That's how we build a strong team. Everyone is evaluated on the same criteria. Why would you expect different?" He laughed, the sound slightly uncomfortable. "I guess I thought family might get special consideration." "Family does get special consideration," I said gently. "It's called believing in them even when they're struggling, supporting them through difficult transitions, and not requiring visible success before offering basic respect. But when it comes to hiring, that's about qualifications, not relationships." The message was clear, and Marcus had the grace to accept it without argument. Whether he would actually apply remained to be seen, but at least the terms were established on equal footing. As the months progressed, our family dynamic gradually improved. Marcus became noticeably more humble, less concerned with outward displays of success, and more interested in genuine connection. He asked thoughtful questions about my business challenges and shared his own professional struggles with unexpected vulnerability. It wasn't a complete transformation. Years of behavior patterns didn't vanish overnight, but it was progress. My parents also evolved in their understanding and support. They attended a small business award ceremony where Project Flow was recognized as an innovative startup to watch, and I saw genuine pride in their faces. Not pride in defying their expectations or proving critics wrong, but pride in the quality of what I had built. The real gift of that difficult journey wasn't the success itself, though that certainly validated the sacrifices I had made. It was the unshakable confidence I had developed in my own judgment and capabilities. I had learned to trust my vision even when others couldn't see it, to persist through mockery and doubt, to define success on my own terms rather than accepting others' narrow definitions. For anyone watching this who has been underestimated, dismissed, or mocked by people who should have supported you, know that their doubt is not a reflection of your potential. It's a reflection of their limited vision. Your worth is not determined by their ability to recognize it. Sometimes the greatest victories are silent ones, the daily progress you make while others are busy dismissing you. Sometimes success is built in the quiet moments of determination, when you choose to continue despite the lack of external validation. If this story resonated with you, please like and subscribe to hear more real-life experiences of overcoming doubt and building success despite opposition. Share in the comments about a time when someone underestimated you and how you proved them wrong, or even better, how you succeeded for yourself regardless of their opinion. Remember, the best response to mockery isn't argument or explanation. It's simply continuing to build, continuing to grow, continuing to move forward until your results speak louder than their doubts ever could. Sometimes the person who underestimates you most becomes your biggest learning opportunity, teaching you through their doubt the invaluable lesson of self-reliance and the freedom that comes from not requiring their approval. Thank you for being part of this journey, and may you always trust your path even when others can't see where it leads.